since mid of June, and it took over a year for COVID-19 cases to hit 100 million mark. The next 100 million were reported in just over 6 months, according to the analysis per Reuters report. The pandemic has left close to 4.4 million people dead, and more infectious strain is driving a resurgence in the pandemic, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, where Thailand, Indonesia, and Japan continue to see new records, and the city of Melbourne entered yet another lockdown. The countries reporting the most cases on a 7-day average, the United States, Brazil, Indonesia, India, and Iran, represent about 38% of all global cases reported each day.
And joining us live from Thailand is Edge Peralta. And in Thailand, new cases hit 20,000 for the first time on Wednesday and then again on Thursday. Now, Edge Peralta will give us an update on the situation in Bangkok. Edge, I believe nearly 100,000 COVID patients have now been placed in home isolation there in Bangkok.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, that is correct. So for the latest news in Thailand, almost 100,000 COVID-19 patients in Bangkok alone are in home isolation as daily cases continue to soar in Thailand, according to Dr. Apisamai Srirangson, the assistant spokesperson for the CCSA, or Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration. And as of Friday, new COVID cases is at 21,379, another record high, with 191 fatalities. Dr. Apisamai said that all sectors are working hard to ensure people's safety. The regulations to allow the public to buy antigen test kits for self-testing has been amended by the Department of Health Service with support under the Public Health Ministry. There are 19 brands of antigen test kits that has been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, which can be bought in hospitals or pharmacies, and it is not permitted to be sold online or in convenience stores. As stated by Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, 20% of people using the antigen kits tested positive for COVID-19 since July. Dr. Apisamai said, if the results came out positive, don't panic. People can call to 1330 or contact the hospital where they're tested so that they'll be given timely medical treatment. The assistant spokesperson also added that there are 64 community isolation facilities in Bangkok, in which 43% of it are already occupied. Several communities have set up isolation facilities which are supported by hospitals and non-government organizations. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much. We're all hoping that this situation will get better. Thank you very much, and take your, stay safe and take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. Reporting live from Pak Chong, Thailand, this is Edge Peralta. We live in interesting times.
Now, another Southeast Asian nation hitting the 10,000 mark in COVID deaths in Malaysia. We have Alfred Balmes joining us live. Alfred?
Hi, Faye. Good afternoon. The COVID-19 experience shook the world by surprise. Never in the wildest dreams of many have they thought how drastic the impact of the pandemic would be on our lives. Now the world is racing against time, pushing their limit to vaccinate as many people as possible, hoping to achieve population immunity. Malaysia government doing their best to vaccinate more people in the country. But still, the COVID-19 death toll had reached the 10,000 mark on Thursday, August 5, after 164 more people in the country succumbed to the coronavirus. With that, a total of 10,019 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in Malaysia since the pandemic began. In his daily COVID-19 statement, Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisam said 100 people who died were Malaysian, while 14 were foreign national. At least 127 casualties and had some form of comorbidity or underlying condition. There are also 22 deaths which have been classified as brought and dead cases. Of all the states, Selangor had the highest number of fatalities with 45, followed by Johor 27 and Kuala Lumpur 24. Only Labuan and Perles reporting 0 new deaths. In the same 24-hour span, the country also discharged 13,893 patients. This is a new daily record for daily recoveries. Cumulatively, 976,626 people in Malaysia, 81% of all cases, have recovered from COVID-19. Malaysia's 20,596 cases reported on Thursday is also daily record and the first time the country has breached the 20,000 mark. In total, Malaysia had 1,203,706 COVID-19 cases. The choices we made in these trying times can shape the world for decades to come. But what needs priority now is nothing but safety for all. Back to you, Faye.
Thank you, Alfred Balmes, for that report. We are going to wait for updates of the government there about this sudden spike of COVID cases there in Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
And now we go from Malaysia, we go to Singapore, where a 79-year-old has died of COVID-19 complications. We are joined by Heather Clemente. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Alma.
Go
A
ahead.
79-year-old man has died as a result of COVID-19 complications, bringing the total of COVID-19 deaths in Singapore to 40. The man, identified as K67610, had not been vaccinated against COVID-19. According to the Ministry of Health, or MOH, he had a history of heart disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and hypertension. On Wednesday, the man passed away. He had sought treatment for shortness of breath and low pressure at Sengkang General Hospital the same day, and was later diagnosed with COVID-19. This is the third fatality from COVID-19 in August. As of Thursday, there were 577 patients in the hospital, with the majority of them doing well and being monitored. In the intensive care unit, or ICU, 8 people were in critical condition and 40 people needed oxygen. 7 of the 48 patients were fully vaccinated, 5 needed oxygen supplementation, and 2 needed ICU care due to underlying medical conditions. According to the MOH, 36 people over the age of 60 have become seriously unwell, with 31 of them being unvaccinated or only partially vaccinated. 80 local patients required oxygen supplementation, were hospitalized to the ICU, or died in the last 28 days. There were 48 people who had not been vaccinated, 24 who had been partially vaccinated, and 8 who had been fully vaccinated. As of Wednesday, 65% of Singaporeans have completed or received 2 doses of vaccine from the National Vaccination Program. About 78% have received at least 1 dose of a vaccine. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather, for that update there in Singapore. And I guess officials there are weighing whether they would be reopening the economy soon. Just read in the news, but then we'll wait for your update. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live from EBC Singapore, I'm Heather Pilar Clemente. We live in interesting times.
From Singapore, we have an update from Vietnam. We have Micah Apostol in Vietnam. The Deputy Prime Minister orders vaccination of drivers and delivery people. Let's hear more from our EPC Vietnam correspondent, Micah. Hello, Micah.
Hello, Faye. Here's the latest update from Vietnam Express International, stated by Deputy Prime Minister Vu Duc Dam that the Health Ministry should prioritize drivers and delivery people for vaccination to ensure safe and uninterrupted flow of essential goods. His instructions obeyed repeated requests by e-commerce companies and manufacturers to swiftly vaccinate shippers to meet the ascending demand for delivery, considering in big cities people are forced to stay at home due to COVID-19 outbreaks. Recently, in August 2, hundreds of delivery men were vaccinated in Ho Chi Minh City. In spite of this, delivery companies have reported vital difficulties, social distancing, with authorities only providing vague definitions of essential goods, and the delay in vaccination discouraging shippers from working. Ho Chi Minh City allows the latter to work, but exclusively within a district, while Hanoi has refused to allow ride-hailing companies like Grab and Bee to operate. So far, more than 8 million people have been vaccinated, but only 820,000 have received 2 doses. As of August 6, there are 4,009 new local cases in Vietnam. Back to you, Faye.
Thank you, Micah, for that update. Keep the updates coming as well. Take care.
Stay safe too, Faye. Thank you so much. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam. This is Micah Gwyneth Apostol. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, Indonesia's coronavirus death toll topped 100,000 as the country struggles to control the spread of the Delta variant. And the impact of the pandemic can be seen at this Rorotan Public Cemetery. It's one of the biggest COVID burial sites in the nation. Take a look.
On the other news, the WHO on Wednesday called for a moratorium in COVID-19 vaccine booster shots until at least the end of September to address the drastic inequity in dose distribution between rich and poor nations. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus urged the countries and companies controlling the supply of doses to change course immediately and prioritize less wealthy states. Let's take a look.
We need an urgent reversal from the majority of vaccines going to high-income countries to the majority going to low-income countries. Accordingly, WHO is calling for a moratorium on boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated. We cannot and we should not accept countries that have already used most of the global supply of vaccines, using even more of it, while the world's most vulnerable people remain unprotected.
Is that it is essential in this time that we look at trying to get vaccines to the people that need them at the best possible prices to get out of this pandemic, and any changes to those prices would really need to be justified in terms of cost. being borne to produce them at this point, because really the goal right now is to get as many people vaccinated as rapidly as possible so we can save lives, reduce the number of people who are getting sick, take pressure off the healthcare systems, and get back to a much more normal functioning of society and obviously of our economies as well.
The World Health Organization on Wednesday urged COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers to keep their prices low and affordable after reports the two producers will raise the cost they are charging the EU. The Pfizer vaccine will jump from 15.5 euros to 19.5 euros and Moderna from 19 euros to 21.5 euros. British newspaper The Financial Times revealed on Sunday, citing the contract concluded with the European Union. Maria Angela Simao, the WHO Assistant Director General for Access to Medicines, Vaccines, and Pharmaceuticals, said, "We have a market where the demand is very high in comparison with production."
And Thailand's morgue workers are battling exhaustion as the kingdom's latest COVID-19 wave hits new highs and the death toll mounts. At the Thammasat University Hospital, north of Bangkok, staff have had to rent a special container to store the bodies after the morgue filled up. Take a look.
คือมันอาจจะไม่ใช่ด่านหน้าที่แบบจะต้องเจอคนไข้ที่ยังมีชีวิตแต่เราคือด่านสุดท้ายแล้วนะคือเราต้องช่วยเหลือเขาอะครับศพมันจะมีทั้งศพด้านข้างในกับข้างนอกเข้ามาเพราะฉะนั้นมันทำให้ปริมาณศพที่จะเก็บในตู้เย็นค่อนข้างล้นแล้วก็จะทำให้มีคอนเทนเนอร์ขึ้นมา
ศพที่เข้ามาเป็นศพที่มีความเสี่ยงนะคะเราก็จะทำการสวอปก็คือเพื่อตรวจหาเชื้อโควิดก่อนนะคะซึ่งโดยปกติที่ตรวจจะใช้เวลาประมาณ1 วันนะคะถึงจะทราบผลเนี่ยศพที่ตรวจสอบไปแล้วเนี่ยเราก็จะเก็บไว้ก่อน
The daily total of new cases broke the 20,000 threshold for the first time on Wednesday, a feat repeated on Thursday. Authorities announced 160 more deaths on Thursday, taking the total to 5,663 since the pandemic began. Every body that arrives for handling has to be swabbed for COVID-19 by morgue staff swathed in head-to-toe protective suits and face masks and shields. The government has imposed severe curbs on daily life in dozens of provinces, including Bangkok, as it battles to contain the outbreak, fueled by the highly contagious Delta variant of the virus. Bars, swimming pools, museums, and other public venues have been closed, strict limits placed on shopping malls and restaurants, and a 7-hour nighttime curfew imposed. But so far, the measures have not slowed the spread, with 20,920 new cases announced on Thursday, taking the total since the start of the pandemic to almost 700,000. After a sluggish start beset by procurement problems, authorities are trying to speed up the vaccination program, and more than 14 million people have now had at least one shot. And the news continues here on Eagle News. Faye and I will be back right after this break.
Ulo. Sa ilalim ng dagat ay sisisig. Ang tahong ay hahanguin. At ang kita ay palalaguin.
Para ka kumita, sisipagan mo, tapos konting kapitalo, magpopondo ka para meron kang hanguin, no? Meron kang makuha pagdating ng oras. Mga 6 months, 3 months, pabalik na yung puhunan mo.
Kesa sa itapon, no, kailangan natin siyang i-recycle para mapakinabangan.
Iba't ibang sangkap ay lutuin. Putahing di kayang limutin. Ako po si Robin Padilla at ito po ang pamumulat. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Gusto kong malaman mo na nahuhulog na ako sa'yo. Tayo na lang, tayo na lang, tayo na lang. Gusto kong malaman.
Hello guys, my name is Abraham. I'm Easy. Please catch us on Letters and Music, on air and online.
This coming Sunday, August 8, 1 to 2 p.m.
So guys, please tune in on that. See ya.
Welcome back to the program. Hundreds of young Malaysian protesters marched in the capital of Kuala Lumpur in defiance of strict government curbs amid the serious COVID-19 outbreak, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. And let's take a look.
He done nothing but trouble in Malaysia. He tried to suppress our freedom of speech. He tried to shut down the parliament many times. He doesn't even perform like any leader in the world. He's a terrible prime minister. He needs to step down.
It was the first feasible demonstration in Malaysia for some time, as many had been reluctant to take the streets due to virus curbs and for fear of getting infected. But anger is growing at the government's handling of the virus outbreak, which is escalating despite a lockdown. And Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's attempts to keep his crisis-raving administration in power. Organizers said about 1,000 demonstrators took part, but the police put the number at around 400. Police told local media that the protesters will be called in for questioning as they had violated the ban on gatherings. Prime Minister Muhyiddin took power at the head of a scandal-plagued coalition last year without an election following the demise of a reformist administration.
And Malaysian political heavyweights Mahathir Mohamad and Anwar Ibrahim put aside long-running animosity and joined an opposition protest on Monday against the shutdown of parliament and demand the country's embattled premier to resign. The final day of a parliament session due to take place on Monday has been cancelled after the discovery of several coronavirus cases in the legislature. But rivals accuse Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin of using COVID-19 as an excuse to dodge a no-confidence vote that could cause the collapse of his crisis-hit government. The parliament sitting, which began last week, was the first this year after political activities were suspended under a state of emergency, ostensibly to fight a worsening outbreak. On Monday, two-time former Prime Minister Mahathir and Anwar stood side by side at the head of a group of around 100 lawmakers before they tried to march onto parliament. The pair's turbulent relationship has long loomed over Malaysian politics, and it has been rare to see them together since the collapse of their coalition government last year amid infighting. Even when people condemn Prime Minister Muhyiddin, he remains shameless and refuses to step down, according to the former Prime Minister Mahathir, 96, telling this to reporters in a historic Kuala Lumpur square.
Staying in Malaysia, Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin refused to yield to mounting calls to quit, but said he would face a no-confidence vote in Parliament in September. Political tensions have been escalating in the country after the king rebuked the administration for misleading Parliament and hundreds staged a rare anti-government protest last weekend. The latest blow came Tuesday when several members of the United Malays National Organization, or UMNO, the biggest party in his coalition publicly pulled their support, and a cabinet minister resigned from his post. UMNO leaders said the withdrawal of support means Muhyiddin no longer commands a majority in parliament. Prime Minister Muhyiddin met with key advisors late into the night and on Wednesday had an audience with Malaysia's king, Sultan Abdullah Ahmad Shah, whose support is important in Malaysian politics. In the meeting, I informed the king that I have sufficient declaration letters, which has convinced me that I still have the confidence of the majority of MPs in the parliament at the moment, he said in a televised address. And hence, the stepping down of myself as prime minister under the constitution does not arise, he added. And a vote of confidence for my leadership will be proposed in parliament, which will meet in September. Prime Minister Muhyiddin said the king agreed to his proposal, and Malaysia's premier took power last year at the head of a scandal-hit coalition, but his government is in crisis after key allies withdrew support, and he has been heavily criticized for his handling of a worsening coronavirus outbreak. And Parliament last month began sitting for the first time this year, but a final session scheduled for Monday was cancelled after the discovery of several coronavirus cases in the legislature. Prime Minister Muhyiddin's rivals say the cancellation was an excuse to dodge a no-confidence vote. Political activities had been suspended under a state of emergency, ostensibly to fight the coronavirus outbreak, and the emergency officially ended on Sunday, although a nationwide lockdown remains in place.
In other news, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has called on all parties to exercise self-restraint in the conduct of activities that would complicate or escalate disputes in the South China Sea. In a joint communique released on Wednesday, ASEAN said all member states reaffirmed the need to enhance mutual trust and confidence and avoid actions that may further complicate the situation in the area. It read, quote, "We further reaffirm the need to pursue peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with the universally recognized principles of international law, including the 1982 UNCLOS. In addition, they underscored the importance of freedom of navigation in and overflight above the sea lane, recognizing the benefits of having the South China Sea as a sea of peace, stability, and prosperity." The statement came following an August 2 meeting among the bloc's top diplomats for the 54th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. During the said virtual meet, some member states also raised concerns on the land reclamations and activities in the South China Sea that, quote, "have eroded trust and confidence, increased tensions, and may undermine peace, security, and stability in the region." China, Taiwan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Vietnam have respective claims in the South China Sea.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN member countries, and the United States on Wednesday affirmed their determination to work closely together to contribute to maintaining peace, security, and stability in the region, including maritime security and safety in the South China Sea. Foreign Minister Bui Tan Son on Wednesday attended the online ASEAN-US Ministerial Meeting Conference, which was held within the framework of the ongoing 54th ASEAN Foreign Ministers Meeting. Let's take a look.
It's crucial to delivering for the American.
With its huge potential, the U.S. has a lot to contribute in the years to come in strengthening the ASEAN community. ASEAN welcomes the U.S. strong commitment in deepening cooperation with ASEAN. At the same time, ASEAN looks forward to working closely with the U.S., in particular with Secretary Antony Blinken, to further deepen the strategic partnership between ASEAN and the U.S. for the region's peace, stability, and development cooperation.
As I think you know, the United States is committed to reinvigorating our alliances and partnerships around the world, and re-engaging robustly in Southeast Asia is a crucial part of that. I believe you've already seen evidence of our commitment both in our consistent engagement at the highest levels and the way we're working together with mutual respect, with urgency, and always grounded in our shared vision of a free, open, secure, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. The United States sees a strong ASEAN as central to that vision, and we remain firmly committed to the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. We recognize the critical importance of working together toward this vision because, in addition to being good for people in Southeast Asia, it's crucial to delivering for the American people, which President Biden has made clear is the top priority for our foreign policy.
The United States emphasized its support for ASEAN's stance on the South China Sea issue and welcomed ASEAN's role in promoting cooperation and dialogue and building trust in the region, as well as ensuring the full and effective implementation of the Declaration of Conduct in the East Sea. And the U.S. also said it supports building an effective and efficient code of conduct in the East Sea in accordance with international law and the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea.
At the same time, ASEAN looks forward to working closely with the U.S., in particular with...
Meanwhile, the ASEAN-New Zealand ministerial meeting was held via video conference on August 5 within the framework of the 54th ASEAN Foreign Ministers Meeting, or AMM 54, and related meetings, and they agreed to ensure regional peace, stability in the Indo-Pacific region. They also agreed to support each other in COVID-19 response and sustainable recovery. Again, let's take a look.
Is that New Zealand will always be a strong... Sadly, though, these are not easy times in which I take on this responsibility with many of you experiencing new COVID outbreaks due to the Delta variant. I wish to express my condolences for the losses that many of you are dealing with and to reaffirm that New Zealand stands with you as we face the health, social and economic consequences of COVID-19. New Zealand and ASEAN are natural partners in facing such challenges. This stems from our shared vision for an open, transparent, stable, prosperous and inclusive region, built around respect for international law and the importance of open markets and supported by regional architecture, which safeguards the sovereignty of all states, big and small. As one of ASEAN's oldest dialogue partners, our 45 years of cooperation reflects an ongoing commitment to work together to uphold those principles as the foundations for peace, prosperity, and stability in our region. This commitment means that New Zealand will always be a strong supporter of ASEAN centrality in the Indo-Pacific.
Now, in other news, thousands of military personnel from Indonesia and the United States are participating in joint drills for 2 weeks, described as the largest ever between the two countries. The exercises focus on island defense are being held in 3 locations, Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi, from August 1 to August 14, the Indonesian military said on Wednesday. More than 2,100 Indonesian military personnel and 1,500 from the U.S. Army are involved in the drills and part of the yearly Garuda Shield exercises organized since 2009, and it added. The American soldiers landed in coronavirus-racked Indonesia in late July and were tested for COVID-19 on arrival. Indonesian Army Chief of Staff Andika Perkasa said the drills were aimed to improving relations between the countries and upgrading the skills of both militaries. They include field training, live fire, aviation, and medical exercises. And the United States has been strengthening its presence in the Asia-Pacific region and wooing allies as competition heats up with China. More updates around the ASEAN region after this short break.
Mapupuno ng saya, impormasyon at inspirasyon ang hapon mo sa Afternoon Power. Handog sa inyo ng Net25. Sasabay sa inyong tanghalian ang inyong Happy Time Barkada at 12 noon. Alamin ang mga pangyayari sa ASEAN nations, ASEAN in Focus at 2 p.m. Ang inyong paboritong awit komentaryo kasama si Leo Obligar sa Piskante ng Bayan. At mga balita sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa, hatid sa atin sa Aguila Probinsya. Siksik ang hapon mo mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, ang inyong Afternoon Power sa Net25.
Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
Hindi makukumpleto ang kada umaga ng walang mainit at masarap na kape. Subalit ngayong may ECQ, karamihan sa mga nasa establishmento na ating iniinuman ng masarap na kape ay sarado rin. MSMEs again are affected by the lockdowns. Small businesses should continue learning new strategies, including keeping up with the digitalization to survive the pandemic. In this episode, we will be given tips on how to remain persistent amidst the trials and challenges we, including our businesses, face. With our guest, Mr. Eric Lim, the COO of Conlin's Coffee.
You have to find the right partners. Part of finding your partners is the same thing what your customers are looking for: consistency, reliability, and quality.
All these, this episode of Open for Business.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, will remain on guard against challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic to keep the country's inflation rate within the target band. In a vibrant message to journalists on Thursday, BSP Governor Benjamin Diokno said the increases in commodity prices in the international market due to supply chain factors and the recovery in global demand are upside risks to domestic inflation. But he also said these risks are expected to be countered by the emergence of new coronavirus disease variants and delays in easing lockdown measures. He also said the BSP remains watchful over the evolving economic conditions and challenges brought about by the pandemic to ensure that the monetary policy stance remains consistent with its price and financial stability objectives. The country's inflation rate decelerated further to 4% in July from the previous months of 4.1%. And last month's figure brings the 7-month average to 4.4%, which is still above the government's 2% to 4% target band.
Indonesia's economy bounced back in the second quarter to post its first growth in more than a year. But analysts warn the recovery might be short-lived as COVID-19 surges. Southeast Asian largest economy grew by 7.07% in the April to June quarter compared with the same period last year, the Central Statistics Agency, BPS, said on Thursday. The figure is higher than a projection by the Central Bank of Indonesia, which predicted growth of 6.75%. The expansion, the first positive figure in 5 quarters, was driven by a pickup in exports and imports as Indonesia's trading partners also saw greater activity. And BPS head Margo Yuwono said, for the economy to keep growing, the key is how we manage the health sector, comply with health protocols, and vaccinate people to reach herd immunity. But analysts believe Indonesia will struggle to record continued growth as a virus surge triggered by the Delta variant racks the country.
Swiss Vice President and Foreign Minister Ignacio Cassis kicks off his visit to Vietnam by meeting Vietnamese counterpart Bui Tan Son, aiming to boost bilateral ties. Take a look.
et la belle nouvelle qu'il y aura un envoyé spécial pour le Myanmar qui aura la tâche de reconduire à une stabilité et à une démocratie le plus possible dans ce pays. Elle est soutenue par la Suisse comme l'agenda des 5 points, le consensus des 5 points qui a été établi en avril de cette année.
Và cũng nhất trí là cùng phối hợp để thúc đẩy cái việc kết thúc cái đàm phán hiệp định thương mại tự do giữa Việt Nam với khối EFTA để mà tạo cái cơ sở thuận lợi để chúng ta tiếp tục đưa cái quan hệ hợp tác kinh tế thương mại đầu tư giữa Việt Nam với Thụy Sĩ, Việt Nam với khối EFTA thời gian tới phát triển nhiều hơn nữa.
Now, during this visit, the Swiss government has given Vietnam 500,000 rapid COVID test kits and 30 oxygen ventilators for the fight against the pandemic, as the Southeast Asian country is dealing with the latest wave of the outbreak. Now, Swiss Foreign Minister Cassis also welcomed ASEAN's recent appointment of a special envoy for Myanmar and said this initiative was supported by Switzerland. Prime Minister Pan Min Chin also hosted a reception on Thursday for the Swiss Vice President and Foreign Minister. The leaders also discussed preparations for Vietnamese President Nguyen Xuan Phoc's upcoming visit to Switzerland and cooperation in the fight against COVID-19.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations on Wednesday appointed an envoy to Myanmar after a months-long delay in diplomatic efforts to resolve the coup-hit country's political crisis. ASEAN's foreign ministers said in a joint statement, delayed by internal wrangling, that they welcome the appointment of Brunei's second foreign minister, Erywan Yusof, as the bloc's special envoy. ASEAN, which operates on a premise of consensus and non-interference, has been under global pressure to help resolve the crisis. Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing attended an ASEAN meeting in April that led to a consensus statement that called for an immediate end to violence and a regional special envoy. ASEAN's joint communique said the envoy's task will include building trust and confidence, and he will have full access to all parties concerned. Yusof has already made one trip to Myanmar for ASEAN since coup on June 4, where he met with Min Aung Hlaing. The appointment of the envoy is expected to clear the way for ASEAN to send emergency aid to help authorities cope with the severe COVID-19 outbreak.
Myanmar's ambassador to the United Nations, who has refused to leave his post despite being fired after the February coup, has alerted the world body to a reported massacre by the military junta. Kiao Moitun sent a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres saying 40 bodies had been found in Kani Township in July in the Sagaing area of northwestern Myanmar. The junta has denied the massacre, while AFP has not been able to independently verify the reports due to mobile networks being cut in the remote region. The representative wrote that soldiers tortured and killed 16 men in a village in the township around July 9 and 10, after which 10,000 residents fled the area. He said a further 13 bodies were discovered in the days following clashes between local fighters and security forces on July 26. Kiao Moitun added that another 11 men, including a 14-year-old boy, were killed and set on fire in a separate village on July 28. Now, in the letter, the ambassador repeated his call for a global arms embargo on the ruling junta and urgent humanitarian intervention from the international community.
Now, here in Thailand, the country on Wednesday banned sunscreens containing chemicals that damage coral reefs from its marine national parks. The kingdom's sandy beaches have long been popular destinations for millions of tourists, but concerns are growing that the lotions they use as protection from the tropical sun are harming delicate, slow-growing corals. An order came into force on Wednesday banning lotions containing oxybenzone, octinoxate, and 4-methylbenzyladine camphor butylpyridine from Thailand's marine national parks. And this announcement said the science showed the chemicals deteriorate coral reefs, destroy coral larvae, and obstruct their reproductive system and cause coral reef bleaching. And Thailand follows the Pacific island of Palau and the U.S. state of Hawaii, which have already imposed similar bans. Violators face a fine of up to 100,000 Thai baht or $3,000 US, though officials have not said how they plan to enforce the ban. Thailand's key tourism sector has been devastated by the pandemic as the government imposed tough entry restrictions as part of efforts to curb the virus.
And ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Samahan sina Wedge Kujamat,
itong balitang panggising sa ulo ng mga balita.
Apple David,
Sa 60 na pong katao ang isinugod sa ospital.
Phoebe Publico
Economic sabotage ang mga tiwaling negosyante.
at Cristel Fesalbon
Pagpresyo ng gulay, makakausap natin
para ihatid sa inyo ang mga kaganapan at pangyayari sa bansa at sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Mga napapanahong isyu ng bayan. May balitang sports, entertainment at iba pang kaalaman. Simula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5 ng umaga sa paborito nyong morning show, Pambansang Almusal, dito sa Net 25.
Pambansang Almusal.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Welcome back. Carlo Paalam is one victory away from winning a first Olympic gold medal for the Philippines in boxing after his master class on Thursday in Tokyo. But there is to be no double Philippine gold after compatriot Emir Marshall was edged out on split points in his middleweight semifinal. The Philippines has a proud boxing history and boasts one of the all-time greats in Manny Pacquiao. But the country has never won Olympic boxing gold. Paalam could be the man to change that. Now, in the flyweight category at the Koko Gikan Arena, which is usually home to Japan's national sport, sumo, Paalam outboxed home fighter Ryomei Tanaka in a unanimous points win in their semifinal. The 23-year-old Paalam was ahead on the judges' scorecards. After the first two rounds, they are displayed on screens to make the scoring more transparent and had Japan's Tanaka chasing shadows and missing wildly with his shots at times. Paalam, who sank to his knees and screamed when the victory was announced, faces Britain's Galal Yafai in the final on Saturday for gold.
Finally, in our newsroomer, Felix Marshall lost to Ukraine's Alexander Kizikniak via split decision 2-3 on Thursday to settle for a bronze medal in men's middleweight class of boxing at the Tokyo Olympics. Marshall fought the illustrious Ukrainian punch for punch to get the nod of the 5 judges in the first 2 rounds, but Kizniak couldn't be denied and rallied in the 4th round to escape with the close victory. Marshall's bronze is the Philippines' 2nd medal in boxing after Nesty Petessio's silver in women's featherweight and the 3rd overall for the Philippines after Heidelandia's historic gold medal in women's weightlifting.
Meanwhile, Malacanang will look into the possibility of giving an incentive to retired boxer and Olympic silver medalist Mansueto Onyok Velasco, who failed to receive all the cash and other incentives promised to him after winning a silver medal during the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said he would relay Velasco's plight to President Duterte. He also recognized that there was neglect on the part of the past administration in giving Velasco what he rightfully deserved. Take a look.
napakahirap kasi mangako doon sa mga bigong pangako ng nakalipas na administrasyon, no? Pero unang-una po, no, ite-trace po natin kung kailan yung effectivity ng law na nagbibigay ng 10 million. Hindi ko po kabisado. Hindi po gaya ng ilang malalaking tao dyan, akala noo sa batas. Ako po ay do not claim to know every provision of law. Meron po kami mga specialization. I-check ko po ang aking masasabi. I-check natin kung merong retroactive effect yung 10 million na binibigay ng gobyerno because I am not sure. Pero ganun pa man, pagbibigay, alam ko po ito kay Presidente, kung si Onyok Velasco na nanalo ng silver sa ibang administrasyon na hindi nakakuha po ng kanyang pabuya, pakiusap po natin kay Presidente ito, baka naman mabigyan siya ng pabuya ngayon. Pero kapabayaan po yan ng gobyerno na hindi nagbigay sa kanya ng pabuya.
Under Republic Act 10699 or the National Athletes and Coaches Benefits and Incentives Act, Olympic gold, silver, and bronze medalists are entitled to 10 million pesos, 5 million pesos, and 2 million respectively. The law was signed on November 13, 2015 by the late former President Benigno Aquino III. Velasco admitted that he received a one-time cash incentive amounting to 750,000 pesos. The 47-year-old former boxer also received an additional 1.2 million from the Republic Act number 9064 or the Sports Benefits and Incentives Act that was passed during the time of former President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. However, Velasco said he didn't recall receiving the 2.5 million he was pledged by members of the House of Representatives in 1996. While the house and lot that he was promised was turned over to him, he also said he has not received the transfer certificate of his title.
Kung mayroong retroactive effect yung 10 million na binibigay ng gobyerno because I am not sure.
Thank you very much, Faye, for keeping me company today, and you have a safe weekend.
You too, Alma. You have a safe weekend there in the Philippines and take care of yourself.
Thank you.
This is once again Faye Barta from your EBC Thailand Bureau, and that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated and keep safe, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back on Monday. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Ako po si Ronnie, isa po ako sa nawalan ng trabaho ngayong pandemya. Sobrang hirap, ma'am, lalo na nagkaroon ng pandemic. Hindi mo alam kung saan ka pupunta o saan ka kukuha ng kakainin mo. Ayan po, yan, dito rin kami dati nakatira. Nagkaroon ng pandemic, lumipat po sa kabila. O ibang tao nga nahihirapan, may trabaho. Ako pa kaya... Ito po yung bahay ko na pinaglipatan ko mula Pidukos hanggang dito. Nagkaroon po siya ng ECQ, ma'am. Hanggang sa nahirapan na kami, nawalan na kami ng hanap buhay. Simpleng tao lang naman ako eh. Bata pa ako, ba't bibigyan mo akong ganitong trabaho? Bigyan mo akong karanasan ng ganitong buhay.